I'd like to call this special meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education to order. Please note that the meeting is being live streamed through the Wilson County Schools YouTube channel. The public can go to YouTube to find the video, excuse me, or go to the Wilson County Schools Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, and the Wilson County Schools website for the YouTube link. Members of the board, what is your pleasure in regard to the approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell?
I move that we approve the agenda for the special meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the agenda for today's special meeting be approved. The motion was made by Mrs. Powell, seconded by Mr. Mercer. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are coming together to deal with possibilities in order to better accommodate the students at Springfield Middle School because of the tornado. And we are thrilled that possible remedy of the close quarters that the students and the faculty are experiencing. And we thank everybody at the school for the patience, and the community for the patience that is going on and will be going on for a while as we address the issue of the situation at Springfield. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mills for the information that he chooses to present to us this afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, we have some information in your packets. The first action item that we need to talk about, the only action item really is the lease agreement for mobile units. Ms. Thomas is here too, but we spent a lot of time over the last 2 weeks, or since the storm as well during the recovery, trying to work through the needs of the school for classroom space and what can work. And Ms. Thomas and her staff have done an outstanding job to make the existing building functional for the period of time for us to get mobile units in place and get them situated. And it's not as simple as just going and putting in a call and saying, please send 5 mobile units or 2, and they show up and they're suddenly there. And I wish it was. We'd already had those in place. So there's a lot of background work that has to go into putting those temporary classrooms in space, because they're going to be there for a period of time during the repair process, and there's tremendous amount of rules and regulations that go along with them, and planning. So we've been working on that constantly since the storm hit. Greg and Darrell Woodard, Dr. Williams, Ms. Thomas, Ms. Cornetto, everyone's been involved in this process. So where we are now is we have reached out to 3 companies that could meet the needs for the school. And what you have with you are 2 sets of quotes, and I've done a comparison sheet to kind of give you an idea of the 2 vendors and their bits and pieces for the mobile units. We have one vendor that simply said they just could not provide what we needed, and that's fine. We did inquire, so we followed the process. The information on these mobile units and the quotes is, has been checked and discussed and rechecked, and includes all the pieces and parts we're going to need. Our furniture, while it's available to us from the schools, takes up too much room in the mobile unit, so we need to include furniture, for instance. These are all kinds of things. There's codes and regulations for the ramps, for the stairs, there's setup fees. So there's a lot of pieces and parts. So the first thing we really want to do is show you what's out there, and then we need the board's approval to submit this. And time is of the essence, because we need to turn this in to the insurance representative and then contact the company, because as soon as we can make them engage with us, then that starts their clock running to provide us with the mobile units. So at this point, you can see from the comparison chart, Mobile Modular is the vendor that we are recommending for our needs. We're looking at 2 modular units with 8 classrooms. And not only are there savings from financially, and Dr. Williams has handled most of this to this point. They've been very much on top of all of our conversations and requests, and very thorough and prompt to provide information. I think that the critical piece when we started this was the delivery date and the setup dates, and these are all estimates depending upon permits and depending upon the site. Our sites are considered to be easy sites according to the installers, because we're right off of a school, it's flat, we're not in the middle of another crisis situation. So these are probably worst case dates for part of it, and best case dates for some pieces, but we like Mobile Modular, and they're also the preferred vendor from a financial standpoint. I will point out that there is still a separate set of work that needs to be engaged with, because there's going to have to be hookups with power and some walkways and things that are placed in, and we have someone on schedule to step in locally to help with that. Greg and Daryl and Dr. Williams have worked on that aspect of it. But these are 9-month lease to start. Again, we can talk about more of that after that fact. If you try and run the monthly cost against a 9-month period, it does not equal the total, because there's setup fees and return fees and services that are included in these quotes. You can see on the information we provided you. So I didn't want that to be confusing to anyone why that math doesn't work. That's why. And then another piece that would sometimes get lost, and thanks to Daryl and Greg for that again, is we will have to add fire safety setups to those buildings, and we're looking at likely in the neighborhood of $40,000 per unit to do that. I did include a kind of a Google map shot of the school and where those mobile units will likely be situated. It is not on the scale. I mean, I just put some rectangles on the screen to kind of give you an idea. We'll tell you I had conversations with the county manager and Jason, the inspector, out working with our staff. So they know this information is coming and are working with us to make sure we're working together ahead of time so it can go as fast as possible. But it has to be, these mobile units have to be a certain distance from the building, there has to be a certain distance from bathroom facilities. But these are the ideal setup for us. And again, they're going to be in place for a while, so we want to go ahead and have it done right. And this will provide the space, the learning space that we need for our students. So at this point, I would ask if there's any questions, and also from our staff to provide any additional information that I've not included. That's the 10,000 feet overview.
Mrs. Barnes?
And that is, will any concrete have to be paved in order to get them from any portion of the modular units into the building itself? So
Yeah.
that would be an additional.
There's some possible sidewalks that we would have to put down, but it will be a short distance.
Okay.
As far as.
My experience with them was when I was at New Hope, and it was just a muddy mess. It was a little tolerable, well, it was elementary, going back and forth. So I think about those kids, you know, when you have to have modular units.
Yes, ma'am. I think the location that we have, if any, would be the one that's towards the front driveway.
Okay.
You know, just a short distance. There will be a ADA,
Yes.
ramp and,
Steps.
like a deck there. So that's gonna take up some of that space, so that will shorten the amount of sidewalk that we will have to do. But there will be a small amount.
So the units have to be in place before those sidewalks are put in?
That's, you wanna go to the podium?
You need, I don't
The,
think you
the,
picked
u-
up.
we would not do that work until the units are in place and pinned down from the vendor. At that point, we would, the general contractor would come in and do the site work to pull in power and, the sidewalk, and walkway issues. So there's just two separate phases.
And when you do power, does that mean power poles put up, or where are you connecting for power?
They will be temporary power. The city of Wilson will provide those, but it will be temporary poles.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Mercer?
my question was, and it may not be an answer yet, but is there any expected, or what are the expected expenses beyond what the insurance will cover? I know there's a deductible, small one, but are there,
Right now, and Ms. Cornell, correct me if I'm misspeak, but you have the extra expenses amount for this situation to file against for the insurance to pay for this amount. So depending on what other expenses we have, but again, this would be one that would be primary because you've got to have classroom space. So the other pieces might be other things related to the repair process, and we do not know that because we don't have a scope of work yet, so we don't know the kinds of things we may ever run into. But this is a fixed cost that you know you're gonna have to have, but these costs are within limits of what you would expect for the type of mobile units we're getting for the period of time.
I was just wondering if, of course, we want to provide what we need to provide for the students and the teachers and everyone, but and the insurance, and I don't know the ins and outs of the insurance. I don't know if anybody does exactly, but,
Yeah, Ms. Cornell can address that too.
but are they expected to cover our expenses? I mean, like with the mobile units and the replacing of the furniture and supplies and the whatevers.
Dr. Fitch, may I address Mr.
Yes,
Mercer?
certainly.
Mr. Mercer, you might remember that our insurance plan has $13.6 million for the reconstruction of the building, and then another 1.5 for the contents of the building, and that's all stuff that happens outside the scope of these modular units. There is another fund called Extra Expenses. It's up to $5 million, and in talking with the insurance adjusters, this falls in that category, the purchase of the mobile units and all of the requisite pieces and parts that need to go with it. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I mean, I just wanted to feel like that we wouldn't have to start counting pennies and saying we can't do this or can't do that the way we would need to or like to.
I know what
That was
you're
the
saying.
concern
Yeah.
I had.
This would fall under the extra expenses, which is separate from the repair aspects, which is $13.563 million. and then the contents piece. So it does not, it would not be charged against the repair of the building to bring it back to what it should be for the life of the building. These are the things over and above that you're gonna need to have in place to get back to that. And they realize that, and that we were glad to have that conversation with them after the fact. That's a good question, because we had the same one.
Other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Boykin?
The units, when we put them in place, will our insurance on the building cover the units, or do we need to buy a separate policy?
We have looked at that, and our insurance in place will cover that,
All right.
yes.
Second question. After the initial term of the lease, is there an option to where we could go month to month?
Yes, there is.
Other questions?
Dr. Finch,
Mrs. Powell?
just to add to what Ms. Barnes was saying, will there be a covering also over the walkway from the mobile units to the building?
At this point, no, that is not required.
Okay, I just remember an experience, Ms. Barnes took me back of pushing a wheelchair from the module unit to the school and getting drenched, getting wet, so.
Yes, ma'am.
There is an awning over the entrances to the mobile units, but it's not a covered walkway. But it does have to be accessible, and we are looking at how close we can get them based on what the inspector says, and from their standpoint of how to site them.
Will there be, I can see how a covering would come with the mobile unit, but using an exit that's not the major exit to leave the building to go to them. If there's not a awning or a cover, will one be provided? Does it make sense?
I think if the board is asking to consider installing a covered entrance or exit and walkways, then that's certainly something we can look at, but understand it's gonna be a charge against your eligible expenses. And I think your concern was, at some point, are we ever gonna run out of eligible expenses money
Yeah.
based on this? And the unknown is the unknown. So
Well-
and that would be, there is a cost to that. We do not have coverings at our other mobile units throughout the district, and that is a drawback, and this is temporary. So I would be hesitant to put more into it than we know we may need for something else that is unforeseen from the repair aspect. But it is certainly already an inconvenience for these families and these students, but that could end up being something we would have to deal with later on if we do run out, but.
Maybe we can buy some umbrellas,
I was thinking,
something, yeah.
I was thinking, if you don't have a covered walkway, but the building, the entrance you're using may not have a covered entrance because it's not one that's used, like the front entrance.
Could we do something off that?
Could do something right there is what I was
We
thinking about.
could look at that,
I mean-
and I think our question is, for that is, once we get the okay from the inspector and to get the siding, and then we can take a look and see what would work and do that. I don't want to promise anything that we can't deliver or
Well,
know
that's
just
a
yet,
thought.
but those are things we can come back and share with you as we go, and likely would minimize some of that. But I think we're taking all available action to put them as close as possible to lessen the things that we know are gonna be a pain. They're gonna be a pain, but it's temporary pain, but nonetheless, it's nobody wants to do that.
On your comparison, Mobile Modular has a vendor setup completion date of October 14th, 2024. And it would be after that date that the sidewalks and the power would be put into place, correct?
Yes, ma'am. We'd have to get the mobile unit set
Yes.
up and then locate this stuff to them.
Approximately how much time to do the sidewalks and to have the power?
We could probably get the sidewalks done within 4 to 5 days. Power is depending
On the city.
on the city. Yes, ma'am.
to complement the partners we've had to deal with, everyone understands the impact this is having on our students and our staff and our community, and have already made contact with us in some fashion to offer assistance with, let us know your schedules, and they've been communicating with us. So, and these, again, the 10 days are 10 working days. We didn't include weekends. We had conversation about the fact that if we're pretty close, can you work a weekend and speed this up for us? And so we had some offline conversations with the vendors to say, you know, this is worst case. And again, our site is really, I mean, we've already got hardscape down. We've got, you know, flat situation without barriers, and that, so we're ideal. So it could be an even better situation. We don't want to overpromise, but after the fact, we're already lining up our partners here to come in and do the things that we know to speed it up. So all those conversations have been happening since day one and will continue. So I do expect that our biggest concern was, do you have what we need, and how fast can you get it to us? And I think that in talking with Mobile Modular, they do, and it's waiting on us, and they were definitely very organized and ready to go. And that's probably an underestimate of how quickly they can do certain things. So, but again, we're dealing with the unknown with a lot of this, and everything has to line up, but so far we've been fortunate.
Are there other questions?
Can I add, our community partners have been
Amazing.
very amazing to work with, from the city of Wilson to the county entities. Everybody involved has bent over backwards to help Wilson County schools in any way they could, and they continue to reach out in any way they can help. So I don't foresee any of those being a big holdup.
Okay, all right. Other questions? Members of the board, what is your pleasure in regard to the recommended mobile modular for the units for Springfield Middle?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the lease for the modular units at Springfield Middle School.
With mobile
Do you
modular.
have a second,
Yes, I
Ms.?
do.
Were you gonna make that motion?
That was, yeah, I was gonna
Do
make
you,
the same one.
do you
Yeah.
wanna make a second?
Yes.
Second,
Okay.
yeah, the second, so.
Oh, it has been moved by Mrs. Powell, seconded by Mrs. Boyette and Mr. Mercer, that the board approve the recommended mobile modular for the lease agreement for Springfield Middle. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously, and that is a 6-0 vote, as Mr. Breen, is not in attendance at today's meeting. Dr. Mills?
Madam Chair, at this point, I think that what we would like to do is share a little bit about the process for the reconstruction and repair aspects of it, and Ms. Cornell is going to share a little bit about that, and then I think we'll cover everything we need to cover for today.
Okay.
Board members, this is not an action item, but we just wanted to forecast for you and the public about the next steps now that the mobile units will start the contract moving forward with that. The reconstruction is a separate and simultaneous process, and we are waiting for the scope of work from the insurance adjusters to come. And once we have that, then we'll be able to assess what kind of contract will be needed and what kind of work needs to be done from their perspective. They are aware that your next board meeting is September 16th. I'm pushing them to try to have something to us well before that so that we can digest it and be able to present to you all. I think it's important to note that the insurance company has been really, really receptive and responsive and understanding that we don't have money around for this purpose. They are advancing funds to the school system and in anticipation of the invoices that are coming. And I think that's a really positive sign, and it's very helpful for obvious reasons. I think the other part that I wanted to prepare the board for conceptually, not knowing what the scope of work looks like, all of this is very, very time-consuming on a already spread thin staff. And so, we're just the lawyers, but our recommendation is to consider having a construction manager for this process that can be the urgent person that can continue to, connect the dots, make things happen. It is inordinately time-consuming to do these things, and so I just put that out there for you. We've seen it be very successful in other places that are trying to recover from something like this. So that's just food for thought at this point, and I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Board members, are there questions? I have one. So do we have to put out for bid the construction management to be the handler of all of?
At this
Things
point,
going
I would
forward.
say that we need to see the scope of work before I even
Before.
speak. Yeah,
Okay.
I have the same question. I can't wait to see what the scope of work says and be able to guide the district. We're trying to move urgently, and that's why the special meeting was called before the holiday, so that we can have this process, triggered at this point. So as soon as we hear something, I think we'll be able to come back to the board with a plan.
I know that insurance is covering a lot, but one of the questions that I had was, I believe the governor had already declared a state of emergency for North Carolina in preparation for the hurricane to hit. Is there any benefit financially in terms of that disaster declaration having been made by the governor? So do other funds come into play for all of this?
And while this was devastating for the school board, I think the disaster threshold or category with damages has not been met in order to trigger FEMA, the federal assistance. But the insurance adjuster and both of them have been really, really responsive. I think what I would recommend is waiting until we get to a point where we're not able to get something covered, because right now they're being very reasonable and willing to help and move quickly. So I'll keep you updated if there is any sort of denial.
Okay, all right. Other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Mr. Mercer?
The, several times mentioned the insurance representatives determining the scope of pretty much of the needs, whatever the terms are. Are there checks and balances in that say, if their scope is different than what we feel?
I think it's a great question, which is why we do want to have control, if that's the right word, over the process, to be able to take their scope of work and see that it actually matches with what the legal requirements are, both in building code and educationally. They may think something needs to happen, and we disagree for other reasons, and we'll be collaborating with them on that. But at the end of the day, they have to have a building that works according to law, and I don't know what the scope of work is going to look like, but from everything we've heard, they're not looking to go to battle, they're looking to help us move forward.
Other questions? Then, Dr. Mills, any other points you need to make?
No, ma'am, we have everything we need. We just need to go make a phone call, put our names on 2 mobile units to get them on the road.
Okay.
And I would just like to say that the action by the board will get communicated this evening to the insurance adjuster so that they are able to see the cost that is coming to them out of the extra expense fund, that $5 million I talked about. And I don't anticipate any issues, but obviously I'll be communicating directly with Dr. Williams and Dr. Mills on it.
Okay, that triggers a question, because our furniture is too big to go into the mobile units, and we're gonna have to have furniture. Does the mobile unit company have the size equipment that we need to put in, would that require another lease from them?
No, it's
Or
in
It's all included in the bid that we have in front of
Take
us.
care of
that's
that.
included?
Yes.
Took care of that today.
Okay. Ms. Boyette?
I saw a whiteboard, is that an interactive whiteboard, or
We,
is that a
we,
white writing?
we spec'd a physical whiteboard on the wall, and we have digital whiteboards to place in the classrooms. And that will have full internet access in there. We talked about those aspects and planned ahead for that as well. Yes, we've already,
Should the instruction as normal, just in a different?
just outside in a mobile unit. Yes, ma'am.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Borkin, seconded Mercer, Barnes, and whomever else, that we adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. We are now adjourned. Thank you so much,
you all.
everybody.